Assalamualaikum and hi everyone. Today, our group will present our translation and evaluation of a news report titled Banjir Kilat Membanjiri Hawaii Mendorong Arahan Pemindahan untuk 5,500 orang. First of all, let me briefly introduce our group members. Firstly, my name is BETRISHIA binti Muhammad NORHISYAM.
My name is NORHISYAM binti ZAINAL.
My name is SURAYA binti ZAKI.
My name is Aisyah Humaira binti AHMED FAIZAL.
My name is AINUR binti KAMARUL ZAMAN.
Okay, first of all, the purpose of this task is to analyze our translation process, discuss challenges, and evaluate how meaning, tone, and context are conveyed from English to Bahasa Melayu. In this discussion, we will also reflect on the translation strategy we used, how we handled difficult words and expressions, as well as the feedback given by our reviewers. Through this presentation, we hope to show that translation is not only changing words, but also about delivering the intended message clearly and effectively to the target audience.
The news report discussed a severe flash flood in Hawaii that forced the evacuation of around 5,500 residents. Heavy rainfall caused flooding in Oahu, damaging roads, homes, and infrastructure. Authorities issued urgent warnings and many people were rescued. The report also highlights concerns about the Wahiawa Dam, which is at risk of failure, and the potential large-scale damage caused by the disaster.
Thank you, AHMED, for the summary of the text. So, in our group, we divided the text into several parts and assigned roles for translators and reviewers. For translator, we have assigned the roles to BETRISHIA, AHMED, and me. Each translator worked on different paragraphs. For instance, BETRISHIA worked on the title until paragraph 7, and I was responsible for paragraph 8 until 15, and AHMED handled paragraph 16 to 23. This division allowed each of us to focus deeply on our section while trying to maintain overall consistency during the translation process. We also focus on accuracy, tone, and clarity. After completing our parts, we exchange our translation for peer review along with our reviewers, which is Aisyah and AINUR, and check grammars, vocabulary, and meaning. Finally, we conduct a group discussion where we compare different translation choice and justify our decision. I hope that this collaborative discussion will help us improve the final version of our translation. That's all by me.
Thank you, Anis. And one of the main challenges we faced was translating urgent instructions such as leave now. A direct translation like keluar sekarang is grammatically correct, but it does not fully capture the seriousness and urgency of the situation in Bahasa Melayu. After discussing as a group, we realized that tone plays an important role, especially in disaster-related news. So we chose berpindah segera because it sounds more formal, authoritative, and is commonly used in emergency contexts. So we chose berpindah segera because it sounds more formal and it is commonly used in emergency contexts. This shows that translation is not only about accuracy, but also about choosing expressions that fit the situation. This decision shows... Okay, that is all from me.
I agree with you, Tisha. Also, in my opinion, another challenge involves translating descriptive and vivid words like engulfed. If translated literally, it may sound awkward or even unnatural in Bahasa Melayu. We discuss several options such as menelan, menenggelamkan, and menyelubungi and in the end, we selected menyelubungi because it sounds more appropriate in a formal news context and clearly describes how the floodwaters covered the area.
We also face difficulty with technical terms and scientific terms like hypothermia. Translating it directly into a longer explanation would disrupt the flow of the sentence. If we translate it into a longer phrase like keadaan suhu badan yang terlalu rendah, it would disrupt the flow of the sentence and make it sound less natural for a news articles. So, we decided to retain the term hypothermia as it is already recognized in Bahasa Melayu. This decision helps maintain accuracy while keeping the sentence concise. The situation has taught me that not all words should be translated directly, but sometimes borrowing terms is also effective in preserving the meaning and the clarity of the text. That's all by me.
Alright, for me, another challenge was trying to maintain the tone of the original text. The English article uses a serious and urgent tone, giving it a big emphasis on the issue as it involves a natural disaster. So, a natural disaster is something that you can't avoid, and the aftermath is it would be a catastrophe. Therefore, impactful words are needed. If we translated the text too casually, it would lessen the impact of the message. Therefore, we work together to use the most suitable word choice to translate. We also made sure to use formal vocabulary and sentences structures to keep the seriousness and emphasis of the report. With this, we can maintain the flow of the sentence and also keeping the text coherent and convey the urgency of the text. And that is all from me.
We also encounter challenges in sentence structure. English sentences are often longer and more complex, while Bahasa Melayu requires clearer and more direct sentences. So we sometimes had to restructure sentences rather than translate them word for word. This helps improve readability and ensures that the meaning is easily understood by Malay readers.
Okay, now for the reviewer feedback. For me as a reviewer, one of the main issues that I noticed was that some translations were too literal. For example, the phrase kegagalan jalan raya is accurate, but it sounds unnatural and awkward depending on the context. So, we discussed whether to adjust the wording to make it sound more natural while still keeping the original meaning.
I also focus on improving word choice and clarity. For example, measurement like chest level were translated as paras dada, which is more natural and easier for the readers to visualize. In addition, I noticed that some phrases were translated too directly from English, which affected the natural flow in Bahasa Melayu. So we suggested adapting certain expression instead of translating them word for word to improve readability.
And moreover, I checked for consistency in the terminology for the terminology. For example, terms related to disasters such as banjir kilat, pemindahan and hypothermia need to be used consistently throughout the text to avoid confusion and stay in the right category in that terminology. This is because we have to maintain the flow of the text, but also keep it familiar for the readers to understand.
We also review grammar and sentence flow. Some sentences were initially too long or directly copied from an English structure. So we suggest breaking them into shorter sentences to improve readability and make the translation sound more natural. This also shows that English and Bahasa Melayu have different sentences patterns, so restructuring is something sometimes necessary to ensure the message is clear and effective.
I would like to add on, another important aspect was the tone. We ensured that the translation maintained a formal and professional tone as it is in a news report. Therefore, we had to avoid using informal words and make sure the message sounds authoritative, credible, impactful, and also professional. And that is all from me.
When comparing the English and Malay versions, we noticed that English text creates urgency through the use of capital letters such as leave now. In our Malay translation, we adapted this by using berpindah segera, which conveys the same level of urgency even without relying entirely on capitalization.
I agree with Irina. In terms of sentence structures, English tend to use longer and more descriptive sentences, while Bahasa Melayu, they prefer shorter and clearer sentences. Because of this, we have to restructure some sentences instead of translating them directly. This helps us to make the translation more readable and suitable for Malay audience. Additionally, I realized that direct translation can sometimes result in awkward phrasing. So I focus on adapting the sentences structure while preserving the original meaning.
We also observe differences in vocabulary usage. English often use metaphorical or expressive words, while Malay translations need to be more straightforward. For example, instead of translating figurative expressions directly, we simplified them to ensure clarity.
In terms of sentence structure, English tends to use longer and more complex sentences with multiple clauses. However, Bahasa Melayu generally prefer shorter and more straightforward sentences construction, which I have said earlier. Because of this difference, we had to restructure several sentences instead of translating them for words. For example, long English sentences were sometimes divided into two or more shorter sentences in Malay to improve clarity. Another important aspect is cultural and linguistic adaptation. Certain English expressions do not have direct equivalent in Bahasa Melayu, so we have to interpret their meaning and choose the closest natural expression to make it more readability and clarity to make it clarity for the audience when they read it. This process highlights that translation is not just about linguistic equivalence, but also about ensuring that the message is effective and appropriate for the target audience.
We also analyze how translation choices affect reader interpretation. For example, using stronger and more formal words in Malay helps convey the seriousness of the disaster and encourage readers to understand the urgency of the situation.
So overall, the difference between the English and Malay version are influenced by linguistic structure, cultural expectation, and also the purpose of the text. This shows that the translation is not just about language conversion, but also about effective communication. That is all by me.
The translation choices we make affect how readers interpret the situation. For example, using stronger and more formal wording helps create a sense of urgency and seriousness, which is very important in disaster related news reports. If the translation is too casual or too literal, the message may lose its impact and the audience may not fully understand the severity of the situation. Therefore, we had to carefully consider not only the meaning of the words, but also how the message would be perceived by the readers. So, for my reflection journal is that this translation task helped me realize that translation is not simply about changing words from one language to another, but it is also about conveying the meaning, tone, and context accurately. I find it challenging to translate urgent phrases such as leave now because a direct translation did not sound natural in Bahasa Melayu. Through discussion with my group members, I learned to choose more appropriate expressions like berpindah segera. I also improved my understanding of formal writing style in news reports. So, overall, this task taught me the importance of accuracy and collaboration in producing a high quality translation. Thank you for listening, everyone.
Whereas for me, my reflection journal is from this activity, I learned that translation requires careful word choice and sensitivity to context. One challenge I faced was translating descriptive words like engulfed, which cannot be translated literally without sounding awkward. With the help of my teammates, I explored different options and selected the most suitable one. The group discussion also helped me see different perspectives and improve my translation. In the future, I will focus more on making my translation sound natural and clear while maintaining the original meaning. Thank you.
As for me, these translation tasks enhance my understanding of how technical terms should be handled in a professional context when it comes to translating. One of the main challenges I encountered while translating specialized terms such as hypothermia, I initially considered explaining the term in full, in full words when it comes to translating in Malay. But however, I realized that doing so would disrupt the flow and reduce the conciseness of a news report. Therefore, I decided to retain the term hypothermia as it is already recognized in Bahasa Melayu. Additionally, I become more aware of the structural difference between English and Bahasa Melayu. Just like English sentences tend to be longer and more complex, whereas Bahasa Melayu requires clearer and more direct structure. This requires that me and my friends to restructure sentences rather than translate them literally. Through peer feedback and group discussion, I learned that justify my translation choice and improve clarity. This experience has strengthened my confidence and taught me that effective translation prioritizes meaning, readability, and context over direct for word conversion. That's all by me.
Alright, as for me, through this translation project, I learned that the importance of reviewing and editing. As a reviewer, I had to identify errors in grammar, word choices, and sentence structure. I noticed that some translations were too literal, so I suggested a few ideas to make them sound more natural. Other than that, this process helped me develop critical thinking skills and also to pay closer attention to detail. This made me realize that translation is not only just important for global understanding, but it also trains the minds of translators to be sharper and more precise. Additionally, I have also learned that teamwork plays a big role in producing a better and clearer final result. Working together as a team can really help you in translation because you have many sources of perspectives and ideas as well. In the future translations, I will have to pay more attention to the tone of the text, ensure the flow of the translation, and lastly, focus on readability as well. And that is all from me. Thank you.
And this does show me that translation is a complex process that involves understanding both language and context. One of the biggest challenges for me was maintaining the tone of the original text, especially since it was a serious news report. I learned to use formal language and appropriate vocabulary to match the tone. The feedback from my group members helped me improve my work and see my mistake. This experience helped me become more aware of the importance of clarity, accuracy, and teamwork in translation. In addition, I also learned that small differences in word choice can affect how the message is conveyed. That's all for me.
So, in conclusion, this task helped us understand that translation involves accuracy, tone, and cultural adaptation. Through collaboration and discussion, we were able to improve our translation and learn from each other. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.